You're listening to NFT365, the first daily podcast on NFTs with your host, Fanzo.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT365. And, I'm excited for the have a little conversation because I had a, just before I went to record this episode today, I got a text message, and it was kind of perfect timing. I had a different plan for this episode. But I will say, as soon as I got the text message, I was like, actually, this is a perfect one. And, the question was set, and I'm going to kind of set you up for it because I think I'm going to put it a little bit more perspective. But the question was really around like, hey, Brian, my son or daughter is, entering, into college. And I was curious, what would you recommend that they study so that they are ready to take full advantage of like Web3 and NFTs outside, like when they're out of college? And it got me thinking, I think for many of you that are listening to this, one of the things that I think can be sometimes a struggle is that what are the variables that are at play here that are important for us to know or understand, right? And I think a lot of the things that go on within Web3 and NFTs are very intertwined. What I mean by that is, for you to understand, if a project is rolling out a coin, you need to understand tokenomics and crypto and what's the difference between like that coin and, Ethereum or Bitcoin or Doge or Looks Rare or, any of those type of coins. And like also understanding things like market cap and liquidity and understanding, what are some of the trends that we look at. The other part of this is, when you look at the different blockchains that NFTs are being minted on, right? It's not just about, like, it really bothers me when someone says, well, why aren't, people should be using Solana because Solana doesn't have gas prices. I'm not really sure is that the only value proposition of Solana? No. If you understand Solana as a blockchain, it's a whole different conversation that's happening. But you also have to understand what Ethereum, what's happening in the future of Ethereum as far as with the merge and understanding with the, kind of moving, the type of blockchain and crypto that is kind of enabled on Ethereum and understanding the different layers, layer 1 and layer 2 blockchains. And we also, when we get into the Metaverse conversation is, what are all, and this is, I will openly say, like, this is probably my weakest knowledge, my weakest place where I spend a lot of my time, and somewhere that I'm going to want to increase my knowledge of, is around the true metaverse play as far as the different platforms and how they even will coexist, or how are we looking at the future of the metaverse as far as what's driving the different success aspects of the different metaverse platforms. Everything, you can just look at the big names from Sandbox to, if you want to kind of play it at like kind of like the higher level, right? Or if you want to kind of go a layer lower, right? There's, the amount of different metaverse plays and land plays, of course, with the other side being launched with Bored Ape Yacht Club, and of course, transforming. This past weekend was one of the biggest days in NFT history. But when I think about like what are the things that we need to like study and learn, I think the mechanics is what we don't need to study and learn, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of people focus on like the tools or the data or the, like what are the different exchanges? I want to know all the different exchanges, the way I can bring my money on. Well, I would actually argue that the understanding, really a couple different factors here, right? You want to start to understand like, okay, what are the factors in the supply and demand of, and I'm focusing here from an NFT perspective, right? So if you want to increase your level of expertise in NFTs. If you want to become a better collector, maybe you want to become a better, you want to launch your own collection in the near future. I would really double down on studying like some of the trends and the impacts, right? So like when I mean, a perfect example was this past weekend, right? With the other side land being sold with Bored Ape Yacht Club and the Ape Coin. And of course, the Ape Coin was then rolled out into OpenSea. And congrats to Yuga Labs. I love seeing their success. I tweeted out that a lot of people talk about WAGME or we are all going to make it. Yet those same people get bitter and mad that like they don't have a Bored Ape Yacht Club, Bored Ape, and they're not able to afford the land, or maybe they passed on a mutant or they sold early. Like, I look at all of these things as success, right? I think there's so many, like, we're not competing, right? I don't think of other projects as competition. And I want other projects to succeed because those are more use cases, more entry points, more people that want to be a part of this whole this whole equation and everything that we have going on. But I also will say, like, it's kind of fun to like really study some of the nuances, right? So this weekend I've been studying like what is like the way that people are positioning, the people that are excited because they KYC'd their wallet, which stands for Know Your Customer, which really just means that you have to prove your identity and attach it to your wallet so that it kind of proves that wallet is yours. The whole conversation around KYCing, right? And a lot of it was bringing me up flashbacks of the online poker world, which the online poker world did it wrong. We should not follow the online poker example, right? Fighting the establishment, not willing to bring in some regulation, some understanding of collaborating with Web 2 and some understanding of really kind of bridging this gap. But I also think the other part of this that we should study is what are some of the ways that when
I found this on the web.
hey, look at that, how funny is that? When innovation happens, that it kind of triggers, a trend within the marketplace. So one of the things that I've been studying is, Moonbirds, which was the first PFP project from the Proof Collective. What I like was going back to was like, what was the very first tweet? How did Proof Collective roll out originally? Like, what was their original strategy, right? So like, because I think it's so easy for us to be like, oh, well, if you have like a big name like Heaven Rose, then of course a project's gonna be successful. But I would actually argue that there was a bunch of things that were done very well early on that allowed a lot of the hype and the FOMO and really the right people into the conversation, so that when they were able to drop their first PFP project, it wasn't a matter of will it sell out. It wasn't even a matter of will it, the floor price increase, but it was like, how quick? Like, what is that going to happen? And I actually think like our ability to social listen, while also our ability to truly navigate the difference between like rumors, trends, and innovation. And so if I was going to give like an answer to the question, around like places that we should study, is like understanding the different blockchains and the underlying technology functionality of the blockchains is important. I also think it's important to understand the different nuances within Web3. Everything from DeFi to DAOs to understanding, an L2 versus an L1, understanding the difference between a collective and just an NFT project, understanding derivatives and like some of those nuances. And I would argue like the best place to kind of like study is to kind of like tackle each one of them and jump into a Discord or buy an NFT that unlocks, some of those doors. The other thing that I would really recommend that you focus and studying is really the human condition and digital empathy in 2022. Because yes, the technology of blockchain is exciting and cryptocurrency is exciting, but I would actually argue, like we just did an episode on marketing here on the podcast. If you're marketing your NFT project, marketing your NFT project really comes down to relationship building, really comes down to human connection and storytelling. If you think about like the best projects that you're a part of right now, a lot of that comes down to the humans that you're connected with. How is that community being facilitated? And so like my answer back to my friend who had texted, and funny enough, I don't think he listens to the podcast because for whatever reason, but he knows what I'm up to in this space. Like my answer back is like, I think you could, if someone wants to be a developer right now, it'd be a great time to lean into being a developer. But I think more so than anything, it would be understanding like true community building and understanding the ability to kind of roll with the punches and adapt and scale and kind of grow while also being able to handle things like disaster recovery or crisis management. And so I think a lot of the skill sets here come back to like really people skills, right? And they might be, soft skills, but I think the true people skills is where a lot of our focus must, really reside. And like, the ability to tell stories, the ability to be relatable online, the ability to convey empathy, the ability to, when you're telling stories and you're putting yourself out there, the understanding, vulnerability and the power of content. And let's face it, I mean, this kind of dawned on me now just as I'm saying this now, but like, a major gap in this space right now is content marketing as a whole. Like if you are a great content marketer and you are listening to this podcast right now, you should be, if you look at your favorite NFT projects that you're holding right now and think about all of the content they should be creating to build sustainability over a long term, to be able to handle, the NFT winter, to be able to onboard new users, to be able to scale and grow, right? If it's one thing for us to talk about, man, these projects should be thinking like a business. They should be thinking not just like a one-off project. Well, you know what that requires? It requires a business plan, but it also requires like a content marketing plan. It also, requires a onboarding plan. It also requires like a turnover plan, right? When you have a high turnover, right? When you early on only have 5% of your entire collection that are up for sale on a secondary market. Well, what happens when all of a sudden that hits 25%? Like, what is your plan for that? How are you planning for all of a sudden maybe there's a bunch of FUD or maybe you have a whale that dumps the project? I think a lot of that comes down to like, how do we keep establishing the trust? How do we make sure that people know what we have going on? And here's the way that you don't do it. And I saw one of my favorite NFT projects do this today, and damn, it really frustrated me. Man, I don't want to call them out. Man, it's hard for me not to call them out. They put out a message and said, you might not have heard from us in a while, and we've decided to not be like all the other frauds and just talk about things before they're done. We are no longer announcing or making messages until the products are finished. So bear with us and just know that we're working. Man, like, how did that come out of your brand Twitter handle? And then I saw you reposted it like out in other channels. Because what that's pretty much saying is like, we know you don't trust us. And we would rather, talk badly about other projects than to admit like that we've kind of dropped the ball. And it also tells us like, it's a very arrogant stance. It's a very much like, and like, what have you done as a project to convey that we should trust you? Like, you've turned over your founders. You've not, oh my goodness. So interestingly enough, like one of the skills that probably Web3 is going to need the most is communication skills as a whole, right? How do we communicate digitally? How do we communicate within the different mediums across the different, how do we, turn a PR or press release into great content, into great messaging, into great engagement, great things across the board? So, I did an episode early on the podcast about the skill sets needed for Web3, and I would definitely go back and check that out because I still believe in that whole, the skill sets I outlined in that episode. But I will tell you, like right now, like if we looked at the NFT space as a whole, we need people that are focused on education. We need developers. We need crisis managers, and we need people that understand how to handle like hacks and drama and founders being disappearing from projects. We need a kind of a bridge to understanding like how do projects that launched without a business plan create a business plan, right? We need like that skill set, and we also really just need people that understand like the power of storytelling and vulnerability. And doing it in a way that isn't, coming across as I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of the project storytelling right now is what we want to tell you, not what we are doing that we are excited about. It's very one directional. It's very like blockbuster Hollywood style. And like, I will leave you with this, and it's a thing that I've been saying on stage forever. If you're marketing like a billboard, right? Think about the billboards on the side of highways, right? That is a static message. And most of those billboards are sold for ridiculous amounts of money because they're like, look at the projected eyeballs that are driving by this billboard sign. But here's the thing. If your marketing is static and just kind of throwing stuff in people's face like a billboard, you can't expect non-billboard results. I mean, because anyone driven by a billboard and be like, wow, that brand cares about me. Or, man, they really get me. Or have you driven by a billboard and said, I know that they must really are involved in their community? No. So you can't market like a billboard and expect community and human and trust results. You must actually embrace and market as a human and build trust and rapport and content and put your message out there and bring people in and empower people and add transparency to your entire equation if you want those results. Because if you just continue to market and position your projects and your brand and your things like a billboard, you're going to get billboard results. And I don't think any NFT project is going to thrive with billboard results. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, we are super powered by the ADHD coin over on Rally. And as I said, super powered. Don't forget that. You might hear that a little bit more in the near future. But until tomorrow, cheers.